Hey there everybody, so today we're going to be working on this 2006 Dodge Ram 1500. It's got the Hemi in it. Basically what's happening is some vibration, feels like it's from the front end. And so brought it in here about a week ago and realized that it is, or most likely is, this area right here. So this is on the passenger side, and this is where this little stub axle goes into the differential, the front differential. This is your CV axle, and there's some crazy movement right here, and you can see there's differential oil leaking out from around this seal. So basically what this is there's a little miniature axle that goes into here, and then behind here there's a fork that actuates like a sleeve almost, and that's what engages and disengages your 4x4. So I think what's going on is this, the bearing in here is worn out, and then I'm pretty sure that the CV axle, the end of the CV axle is worn as well, and it's flopping around on the end of that, on the end of it there. So we're going to go through the full replacement, show you what parts you might need. You might not all need the CV axle, but I think I'm going to need it, so I'll show you the parts on that. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, so I managed to get the old assembly out. So normally you can just pop the CV off, but it was so seized and worn onto the stub shaft here that I wasn't able to get it off before. So what I did is I took the bolts out of the seal and pried the seal off gently, and then the stub shaft just slides right out. So you can actually pull the whole assembly out at once. Again, the easier way would be remove the CV axle first if you can. So I put the new parts here just to show you with this removed what that looks like. So you've got a spline shaft here, and this is the bearing, and this is that bearing there. And then these look different, but basically this is just a newer version, or this is still a Mopar part, but it's a newer version of the original. So when the four-wheel drive activates, there's a sleeve in there that slides over this, and the sleeve only actually goes onto this splined gear here about this far, and you can see that from the wear right there on this one. So I think what they did is, instead of just making a big huge gear where this amount never got used, they just, I guess, milled it down so it's just this big here. So even though it looks different, it functions in the same way, and it's no different than the original because it's only grabbing this much anyway. Hopefully that makes sense. And so the reason why we're replacing it again, you can see a little clear here, this bearing is totally shot, like there's way too much movement in that. And also you've got movement right here. So that movement's happening between the end of the CV axle and the splined stub axle. So this is the CV, and the stub shaft is going to have to be replaced in this case. Okay, so we're going to have a little look in there. So the flange looks good, and in there is a bearing, and I did purchase the new bearing, so I think we're going to replace that just in case. It looks like it's in really good shape, so if you didn't have it and yours was in good shape as well, you could totally leave it. The end of the stub shaft just rides on that. Okay, so what I've done here to try and get this pilot bearing out, which is being super stubborn, is basically I've just packed it with blue shop rags ripped in little pieces, and just actually using the axle grease that's in there already, and I'm just jamming it into the hole that I was just showing you where the bearing is. And then I've got a piece of pipe that fits exactly in the bearing, and what that's going to do is hydraulically push out the bearing. So this may not seem like it works, but it does actually work surprisingly well. So as I go along, I'll show you, and as I keep hammering it, you'll see how the grease gets packed in and the bearing keeps coming out. So let's try that. So actually what happened there is you can see the cloth forced itself so hard against the back that it pushed the whole bearing assembly right out, and now it's on the post. So I don't even know if I'll be able to get that off now. That might be on there forever, but hopefully you can see what I mean. Like, that's the whole bearing assembly. That's what we wanted to happen. And I'll show you right now what it looks like right inside without doing a cut in the video, so you know I'm not screwing with you guys. So there's what we just did. So that's the clean opening that receives the bearing there. So that actually works really well. And so I'm just going to clean that paper towel out and we'll install the new pilot bearing. Opening for the bearing, and this is the new bearing. So this is the Mopar part number 52114385AB 001, and it goes in this way, obviously always with the writing facing you. And I'm going to put a little bit of grease on it, just bearing grease before I put it in. Okay, so I'm going to be, I'm using this 22 mil socket to put it in. It's just a little shorter, better than the pipe. So start it there, and just gently tap it in, make sure it's going in straight, best you can. Looks like it's at the bottom. And you can sort of just feel, you don't want it getting bound up. You can feel it going in smooth or not. Even, and I'm not hitting this thing very hard. It's more about control. Okay, so we're getting close, and you'll see, I don't know, it's hard to see from the camera, but basically it's almost flush with this face here. This has to be flush with this face, or just a little bit past, just so you get full bearing on the end of the stub shaft. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, so it's almost flush there, a little bit more. Okay, so it's looking pretty good there. Let's see, the top could go in. Oh no, it's pretty flush. So just a couple hits more. There we go. So basically where I've positioned it then is, so the bearing is flush with this face here. The writing side of the bearing is flush with this face here. Plus it's in as much as this flat face here is beveled. So basically the bearing is flush with the inside of this bevel right here, so that you get full support for the bearing, and then you haven't driven the bearing in so far that you're only catching a portion of the stub shaft. So we're going to take the shaft here and we're going to go in and right into there. Everything spins nice and freely, so that's good. And next we'll go to putting the seal back. So we're going to go ahead and slide this seal back on. And so there's the shape of the seal. So that actually has to go into the housing. So we're going to put that on there like that. Pops over that nice. But the harder part is going to be just seating that into the into the openings. So we're just going to position it with the bolt holes best we can there. And I'm actually going to put some of the bolts in. And all this is just for alignment so that it goes in straight with the bolt holes. It doesn't really have a whole lot to do with going straight, like going into the casing. It's more just so that once it's set, the bolt holes will line up. And I'm just screwing in the bolts as I go. And we're going to torque all these to 21 foot-pounds. And we're going to install the new CV axle. So I put some anti-seize on it. There we go.